She lost her baby, then saved a dying Lakota child and found love with his father. She used to believe that life moved in a straight line. Study hard, work honestly, build a family and grow old surrounded by love. That was the simple dream she carried quietly inside her heart. She had never asked for anything grand or dramatic. A small home, peaceful mornings, and the soft laughter of a child were enough for her. For years she worked patiently toward that dream, building a life step by step, trusting that happiness would come naturally. When she finally learned she was going to become a mother, something inside her changed. She felt stronger, softer, and more hopeful at the same time. She began to notice small things she had ignored before: the way sunlight touched the walls in the morning, the smell of fresh rain, the sound of birds outside her window. Every moment felt important because she believed she was preparing a safe world for someone who would soon arrive. She planned carefully, tiny clothes folded neatly in drawers, a small crib placed near the window, books she imagined reading aloud late at night. She spoke softly to the baby even when she was alone, sharing her thoughts as if the child could already hear her voice. Friends and neighbors noticed her quiet happiness. She seemed calmer, more focused, as though her life finally had a clear direction. But life did not follow her plans. The loss came suddenly and without warning. One moment she was preparing for the future, and the next she was sitting in a hospital room that felt too cold and too quiet. Words from doctors drifted around her, but they felt distant, like sounds heard through water. She remembered holding on to the edge of the bed as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. The dream she had built piece by piece slipped away before she could fully understand what was happening. After that day, time changed its meaning. Hours passed slowly, heavy with silence. The small crib remained empty. The folded clothes stayed untouched. She found herself avoiding certain rooms because they held too many memories. People offered sympathy, but she struggled to respond. Words felt too small to describe the emptiness she carried inside. She stopped going out as often. The outside world seemed loud and fast compared to the quiet space she had created around herself. She tried to return to normal routines, but everything felt different. Even simple tasks required effort. Some days she sat by the window watching strangers pass by, wondering how life could continue moving forward when her own world felt frozen.
Months passed this way.
Friends worried about her, but she reassured them she was fine. In truth, she did not know how to move forward. Grief had become part of her daily life, like a shadow that followed her everywhere. She wasn't angry at anyone. She simply felt lost. One evening, while sorting through emails she had ignored for weeks, she noticed a message about volunteer work in a rural community. The program needed temporary help assisting families in a remote area where resources were limited. Normally she would have ignored such an opportunity, but something about the idea of leaving her familiar surroundings felt comforting. Perhaps distance could give her space to breathe again. After several days of hesitation, she accepted the offer. The journey to the rural community felt longer than she expected. Roads stretched through open land, and the landscape slowly changed from busy towns to wide fields and quiet hills. When she finally arrived, the air felt different, colder, cleaner, and calmer. The place was connected to a Lakota reservation, though she knew little about the culture or history. She felt nervous, unsure how she would fit in, but she reminded herself that she had come only to help, not to change anything. The first days were quiet. People greeted her politely but kept a respectful distance. She understood that trust took time, especially in a place where outsiders were rare. She focused on listening more than speaking, observing how the community worked together. There was a strong sense of connection among the families, a shared understanding that did not require many words. She noticed children playing together even in cold weather, elders sharing stories near small gatherings, and neighbors helping each other without being asked. Life here moved at a slower pace, guided by routines connected to nature and tradition. For the first time in months, she felt her breathing grow easier. Still, grief followed her. Some nights she lay awake thinking about what she had lost. Memories returned unexpectedly. A small pair of shoes she had bought, the sound of a lullaby she had practiced singing, She allowed herself to cry quietly, but something about the peaceful environment made the tears feel less heavy. One afternoon, she joined a local event where families gathered for food and conversation. She stayed mostly on the edge, observing respectfully. A few people approached her with gentle curiosity, asking about where she came from and why she had chosen to help there. She answered honestly, though she avoided discussing her personal loss in detail. Even without words, some seemed to sense her sadness, offering warm smiles that felt sincere. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, she began to feel useful again. Helping others gave her small moments of purpose. She organized supplies, assisted with small tasks, and spent time listening to stories from community members. Each interaction reminded her that life continued moving, even after heartbreak. Then came the storm. The weather changed quickly that morning. Dark clouds gathered across the sky, and strong winds swept through the area. Snow began falling heavily, covering roads and limiting movement. The community prepared calmly, used to sudden weather shifts, but tension remained because access to outside support became difficult during severe storms. Late in the afternoon, urgent news spread through the area. A young Lakota child had become seriously ill, and conditions were worsening rapidly. Medical help was far away, and the storm made travel dangerous. People moved quickly, coordinating efforts to keep the child warm and stable while waiting for assistance. Without thinking, she stepped forward to help. Something inside her responded instantly, not as someone trying to escape grief, but as someone who knew how to care deeply. She followed instructions, prepared supplies, and stayed focused on what needed to be done. When she finally saw the child, fragile and struggling, her heart tightened, but she refused to let fear stop her actions. Standing nearby was the child's father, a quiet man with tired eyes that showed both strength and worry. He watched every movement carefully, protective and alert. At first he seemed unsure about her presence, but as she worked calmly and respectfully, his expression softened slightly. Hours passed slowly as they waited for help to arrive. The storm outside grew louder, but inside the room there was determination and hope. She spoke gently to the child, offering reassurance even when she felt uncertain herself. The father remained close, silent, but attentive. For the first time since her loss, she felt fully present in the moment. There was no past, no future, only the need to help someone who needed care. The weight she had carried for months seemed to lift slightly, replaced by purpose. She did not know that this moment would change her life forever. She only knew that she had chosen to stay, to help, and to believe that even after loss, kindness could still create new beginnings. The storm continued through the night, shaking the windows with strong winds and covering everything outside with thick snow. Inside the small home where the child rested, time seemed to slow. Every person present moved carefully, speaking in low voices, focused on keeping the boy stable until outside help could arrive. She stayed close, her attention fixed on small details, adjusting blankets, checking supplies, and watching for any change in his condition. She noticed how the child's father barely moved from his place near the bed. He stood quietly, his hands resting on the back of a chair, as though he needed something solid to hold on to. His calm expression did not hide the worry in his eyes. Occasionally he would step closer, brushing the boy's hair gently, or whispering something soft in his language. She respected his space, understanding that this was his moment as a father. Yet he occasionally glanced toward her, silently acknowledging her presence. That unspoken understanding created a fragile connection between them. Hours passed, and exhaustion began to show on everyone's faces. Someone offered her a cup of warm tea, and she realized she had not eaten or rested since arriving. The warmth helped steady her, but she refused to step away for long. Helping the child felt like the only thing that mattered. Eventually, the storm began to weaken. News came that medical assistance was finally on the way, though it would take time to reach them due to road conditions. Relief spread through the room, but no one relaxed completely. They knew the hardest part was not over yet. During a quiet moment, the father approached her for the first time. His voice was calm but carried deep emotion as he thanked her for staying. She answered simply, telling him that anyone would have done the same. He shook his head gently, as if disagreeing without saying so. Their conversation remained brief, mostly practical, but there was something meaningful in the silence between their words. She sensed that he was a man who spoke carefully, choosing words only when necessary. When the medical team finally arrived, the atmosphere shifted from tension to cautious hope. The child was prepared for transport, and everyone worked together smoothly. She stepped back slightly, allowing professionals to take over, though she remained nearby, ready to assist if needed. As they carried the boy outside, the father paused beside her again. His eyes showed gratitude, but also something deeper, recognition perhaps, that she had shared a difficult moment with him. He nodded quietly before following his son into the vehicle. When the sound of the engine faded into the distance, the silence felt heavy. The house that had been full of urgency now felt empty. She realized how deeply she had focused on helping, and now that the crisis had passed, the emotion she had pushed aside began to return. She stepped outside into the cold air, breathing slowly. The sky had cleared, revealing stars shining brightly above the snow-covered land. The peaceful scene felt almost unreal after the long night. Over the next few days, the community waited for updates. Information arrived slowly, but eventually, good news came. The child was recovering. Relief spread quickly, and people spoke about the event with gratitude and quiet pride. Many thanked her personally, though she felt she had only done what felt natural. The father returned several days later. He looked tired but calmer, and when he saw her, he offered a small smile. He told her that his son was improving and would soon come home. Hearing those words filled her with warmth she had not felt in a long time. Their conversations began slowly after that. At first, they spoke mostly about the child's recovery, daily tasks, and practical matters. But over time, small personal details slipped into their talks. He shared stories about growing up in the community, about learning from elders, and about the importance of balance and patience. She listened carefully, appreciating how he spoke without exaggeration or drama. His perspective felt grounded, shaped by experiences that had taught him resilience. He also began asking gentle questions about her life. She hesitated at first, unsure how much to reveal. Talking about her past still felt painful, yet something about his quiet presence made it easier to speak. She told him about her work, about why she had come to the community, and slowly, about the loss she had experienced. He listened without interrupting. There was no attempt to offer quick solutions or comforting phrases. Instead, he allowed silence to hold space for her words. That quiet understanding felt more supportive than anything she had heard before. As days passed, she noticed how the community viewed him with respect. People greeted him warmly, seeking his advice or assistance. He helped others without hesitation, often working long hours without complaint. Watching him gave her insight into his character, steady, dependable, and deeply connected to those around him. When his son finally returned home, she visited briefly, bringing small gifts from the community. Seeing the child smiling again filled her with relief. The boy recognized her immediately, reaching toward her with excitement. That moment touched something deep inside her, both joyful and bittersweet. She felt memories of her own loss rise unexpectedly. But instead of turning away, she stayed present. The father noticed her quiet expression and later thanked her again, this time more personally. He admitted that he had been afraid of losing his child, and her help had given him hope during a difficult time. Their bond grew through shared experiences rather than dramatic moments. They worked together on small community projects, walking side by side through snowy paths, talking about simple things. Sometimes they laughed softly at small misunderstandings or stories from childhood. Others in the community began to notice their connection, though neither of them spoke openly about it. Trust developed slowly, shaped by respect rather than sudden emotion. She realized that helping the child had changed something inside her. For months she had felt disconnected from life, but now she felt moments of genuine engagement again. The grief had not disappeared, but it no longer felt like the only thing she carried. One evening, while watching the sunset paint the sky with warm colors, She understood that healing did not come from forgetting the past. It came from choosing to remain open to new experiences, even when fear remained. She did not yet know where this path would lead, but for the first time since her loss, she felt a quiet sense of direction. The connection she had formed with the child and his father was not sudden or overwhelming. It was gentle, built from shared effort and mutual understanding. Life slowly returned to its usual rhythm after the storm. Snow melted gradually, revealing the earth beneath, and with it came a quiet sense of renewal. The community moved forward with daily routines, yet the events of that night remained a shared memory that connected people more deeply. For her, the experience had created a shift she could not ignore. She woke each morning feeling slightly lighter, as though a small door inside her heart had opened. The boy's recovery continued steadily. He regained strength day by day, and his laughter began to return to the home he shared with his father. She visited often, not as an outsider anymore, but as someone welcomed warmly. The child greeted her with excitement, eager to show her small drawings or stories he had imagined during his recovery. His energy filled the space with warmth, and although moments of sadness still touched her, she found herself smiling more often. The father remained calm and thoughtful, watching their interactions quietly. He never rushed conversations or pushed emotional closeness. Instead, he allowed their connection to grow naturally through shared moments. They walked together sometimes after finishing daily work, talking about simple things like weather changes, local traditions, or childhood memories. One afternoon he invited her to join a small gathering, where elders shared stories about history and values passed through generations. She accepted with curiosity but also nervousness, unsure how she would be received. Sitting among the community members, she listened carefully, feeling both humbled and honored to be included. The story spoke about resilience, respect for nature, and the importance of balance between past and future. She felt deeply moved, realizing how different this perspective was from the fast-paced world she had left behind.
Here, people pause to listen, to reflect, and to learn from each other.
After the gathering, she walked beside him under a sky filled with soft evening light. She admitted quietly that she had felt nervous about attending. He responded gently, explaining that trust grew slowly, and showing up with respect mattered more than knowing everything. His words stayed with her long after they parted that night. Despite these growing connections, grief still followed her. Certain moments triggered memories she could not control. The sight of small shoes, the sound of a child's laughter, or even quiet nights when the world felt too still. One evening, while helping prepare food in the kitchen, she suddenly felt overwhelmed and stepped outside to breathe. He noticed and followed at a respectful distance. Standing beside her, he did not ask questions immediately. Instead, they watched the sky together until she felt ready to speak. She shared more about her loss than she had before, describing hopes she had once carried and the emptiness that remained. He listened without interruption, his presence steady and calm. When she finished, he spoke softly about how grief had touched his own life in different ways. Though he did not go into detail, she understood that he too carried memories that shaped him deeply. That conversation changed something between them. The walls they had both kept around their hearts became less rigid. They were no longer simply two people connected by a shared event. They were individuals who understood each other's pain. As weeks passed, she began participating more actively in community life. She helped organize activities for children, assisted elders with daily tasks, and learned more about local traditions. Each experience helped her feel rooted in a way she had not expected. Not everyone accepted her immediately. Some remained cautious, unsure about her intentions or how long she would stay. She sensed a quiet observation but did not feel offended. Trust, she realized, was earned through patience and consistency. The father never pressured her to prove herself. Instead, he supported her quietly, introducing her to others and sharing stories that helped people understand who she was. Watching him interact with others showed her a different kind of strength, one based on humility rather than authority. One day, while working together on a small project near the edge of the community, they paused to rest. The wind moved gently across the open land, carrying the scent of earth and distant trees. She admitted that she had started to feel afraid of leaving when her volunteer period ended. The thought surprised her, as she had originally planned to stay only briefly. He listened thoughtfully before responding. He told her that belonging was not defined by time, but by connection. Sometimes people found their place unexpectedly. His words stayed with her long after the conversation ended. Meanwhile, the boy grew more attached to her presence. He often asked if she would join them for meals or help with small activities. His trust felt both comforting and challenging, reminding her of feelings she had once believed were lost forever. She approached the relationship carefully, aware of the emotional weight it carried. During a community celebration, she experienced a moment that felt symbolic. Music filled the air, people laughed together, and for the first time in a long while she allowed herself to dance lightly among others. The father watched with a small smile, and when their eyes met, she felt a warmth she had not expected. Their connection remained gentle and respectful. There were no sudden declarations, only small moments that built slowly into something meaningful. A shared glance, a quiet conversation, or the simple act of walking side by side created a bond stronger than dramatic gestures. Yet uncertainty remained. He wondered if her growing feelings were real or simply part of her healing process. He, too, seemed cautious, careful not to rush into anything that might disturb the balance they had created. One evening after a long day, they sat together watching the sun disappear behind distant hills. Silence felt comfortable between them. She realized that being with him did not require effort or performance. She could simply exist as herself, without pretending to be stronger than she felt. That realization brought both comfort and fear. Opening her heart again meant risking pain, something she had tried to avoid since her loss. Yet she also understood that closing herself completely would prevent any chance of happiness. As the stars appeared one by one, she felt a quiet acceptance growing inside her. Healing was not about replacing what she had lost. It was about allowing new experiences to exist alongside old memories. The journey ahead remained uncertain, but she sensed that something important was unfolding, not through dramatic events but through steady, meaningful connection. And as she walked back toward the lights of the community beside him, she realized that the path she had chosen to help others had slowly guided her toward healing herself. Spring arrived slowly, bringing warmer air and longer days. Snow faded from the ground, and the land began to show signs of new life. Flowers appeared along the paths, and children spent more time outdoors, laughing and running freely. For her, the change in seasons felt like a quiet reflection of what was happening inside her heart. She had become part of the community in ways she never expected. People greeted her by name, and she was included in daily routines without hesitation. The feeling of being welcomed did not come from a single moment, but from many small actions. Shared meals, friendly conversations, and the simple act of working together toward common goals. Her connection with the father grew naturally through these shared experiences. They continued spending time together, often without planning it. Sometimes they worked side by side repairing small structures or helping organize events for families. Other times they walked quietly, enjoying the peaceful surroundings. The boy's presence strengthened their bond in subtle ways. He trusted her deeply and often looked for her during gatherings, eager to share stories or ask for help with small tasks. Watching the father interact with his son showed her a side of him that was gentle and deeply caring. He listened patiently, guiding rather than controlling, encouraging independence while offering support. Despite the warmth growing around her, she began to feel a quiet tension. Her volunteer period was nearing its end. The thought of leaving filled her with unexpected sadness. When she first arrived, she had planned to stay only long enough to regain balance. Now, the idea of returning to her old life felt uncertain. One evening, she received a message reminding her about arrangements for her departure. She sat alone for a long time, staring at the words without responding. The future felt unclear, and she struggled to understand what she truly wanted. When the father noticed her quiet mood the next day, he asked gently if something was wrong. She hesitated before explaining that her time in the community might be ending soon. He listened carefully, his expression calm but thoughtful. He did not react with strong emotion, but she sensed that the news affected him more than he showed. In the days that followed, both of them became more aware of the approaching change. Conversations carried a subtle weight, as if unspoken questions filled the space between their words. She wondered if staying would be selfish, or if leaving would mean losing something meaningful. Community members began asking about her plans. Some encouraged her to stay longer, while others simply expressed gratitude for her help. Each conversation reminded her that she had created real connections, not temporary ones. One afternoon, while helping prepare for a seasonal celebration, she felt overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. She stepped away from the busy area and walked toward a quiet hill overlooking the land. The wide open space helped her think clearly. She realized that fear was guiding many of her thoughts. Fear of making the wrong decision, fear of becoming attached again, and fear of facing another loss. The father found her there later. He did not ask immediately why she had come. Instead, he sat beside her, watching the horizon. After a long silence, she spoke honestly about her uncertainty. She admitted that she had begun to care deeply for the community, for the boy, and for him. Saying the words aloud felt both relieving and frightening. He listened quietly, then shared his own feelings. He explained that he had also struggled with uncertainty. After the difficult moments in his life, he had learned to protect his heart carefully. Opening himself again felt risky, but he could not ignore the bond that had grown between them. Their conversation remained gentle and sincere. Neither of them rushed toward a decision or made promises they could not keep. Instead, they acknowledged what they felt and allowed the moment to exist without pressure. Over the next weeks, their connection deepened in small but meaningful ways. They shared more personal stories, laughed more freely, and supported each other during challenging days. She noticed how he respected her independence, never expecting her to change who she was. He, in turn, allowed himself to be more open, sharing thoughts he had previously kept private. However, challenges appeared as well. Some community members worried about her staying permanently, unsure how an outsider might fit long-term. She understood their concerns and approached them with patience, showing through actions that her respect for their culture was genuine. The boy sensed the emotional shifts between the adults and sometimes asked innocent questions about whether she would stay. His words carried a weight she did not expect. She answered carefully, telling him that she hoped to remain close, no matter what happened. One evening during a community gathering, music and laughter filled the air. She stood watching the father and his son together, feeling both happiness and fear. She realized that love was growing slowly, shaped by trust and shared experiences rather than sudden passion. It felt real and steady, yet she worried about whether she was ready to embrace it fully. Later that night, as they walked together under a sky full of stars, he reached for her hand for the first time. The gesture was simple but meaningful. She felt warmth spread through her, mixed with a quiet sense of peace. Neither spoke immediately, allowing the moment to exist naturally. Days passed, and she began to understand that healing did not mean forgetting her past. It meant allowing herself to live again, to form new connections without guilt. She realized that the love growing between them did not replace what she had lost. Instead, it honored her ability to care deeply despite pain. As her departure date approached, she faced a decision that would shape her future. Staying meant embracing uncertainty and committing to a new life far from everything familiar. Leaving meant returning to safety but possibly losing the connection that had helped her heal. She spent long hours reflecting, walking through the land that had become meaningful to her. Every path carried memories: the storm, the boy's recovery, quiet conversations, shared laughter. She understood that whatever choice she made would require courage. The father never pressured her to decide quickly. He respected her need to think, offering support without expectations. That patience strengthened her trust in him even more. One evening, while watching the sunset together, she felt clarity begin to form. Life had led her to this place unexpectedly, but it had also shown her new strength. The journey from grief to connection had not been easy, yet it had revealed parts of herself she thought were gone forever. As darkness settled around them, she realized that love was not something that appeared suddenly. It grew through shared struggles, mutual respect, and the willingness to remain present, even when the future felt uncertain. The days leading up to her decision passed quietly, yet every moment felt important. She noticed small details more than ever. The sound of children playing outside, the smell of cooking from nearby homes, the way people greeted each other with warmth and familiarity. Each memory felt like a thread pulling her deeper into the life she had slowly built there. She had once come to the community seeking distance from pain, never expecting to find connection or belonging. Now she stood at a crossroads, unsure whether she was strong enough to choose a future that felt both hopeful and uncertain. The father continued to give her space, respecting her need to think without pressure. He did not ask daily whether she had decided to stay or leave. Instead, he focused on small acts of kindness, inviting her to share meals, including her in daily activities, and offering quiet companionship that spoke louder than words. The boy, however, showed his feelings more openly. He often asked about future plans, imagining moments they might share together. His innocence made her smile, but it also reminded her of the responsibility behind any decision she made. She understood that staying would mean becoming part of their lives in a deeper way, and she did not want to promise anything she could not truly commit to. One morning she walked alone toward a familiar hill overlooking the wide open land. The sky stretched endlessly above her, filled with soft clouds moving slowly across the horizon. She sat there for a long time, thinking about everything that had brought her to this place. The loss she had carried, the unexpected journey, and the connections that had grown step by step. She realized that grief had shaped her in ways she had not fully understood before. For months she had believed that moving forward meant leaving the past behind. Now she saw that healing came from accepting both sorrow and joy as part of the same story. Her thoughts returned to the night of the storm, the urgency, the fear, and the moment she chose to help without hesitation. That decision had changed more than one life. It had opened a path she had never planned to walk. Later that day, she visited the boy and his father. The home felt warm and familiar, filled with laughter and simple comfort. They shared a quiet meal together, talking about ordinary things. She noticed how natural it felt to sit at the table with them, as if she had always belonged there. After dinner, she asked the father if they could talk privately. They stepped outside, where the evening air felt calm and gentle. She spoke honestly, explaining how difficult the decision had been. She admitted that fear still lived inside her, fear of loss, fear of change, and fear of opening her heart fully again. He listened carefully, his expression calm and understanding. When she finished, he spoke softly, telling her that he did not expect her to erase her fears. Instead, he believed that courage meant moving forward while carrying those fears honestly. She looked at him for a long moment, realizing that his presence had become a source of strength she had not expected. He had never tried to fix her pain or replace what she had lost. He had simply walked beside her, allowing healing to grow naturally. Taking a deep breath, she told him her decision. She wanted to stay. The words felt both heavy and freeing at the same time. She explained that staying did not mean forgetting her past, but embracing the future she had found unexpectedly. She wanted to continue helping the community, building connections, and exploring what their relationship could become without rushing or forcing it. He smiled quietly, relief visible in his eyes. There were no dramatic gestures, only a shared understanding that they were choosing to move forward together step by step. When they told the boy, his reaction was immediate joy. He hugged her tightly, his laughter filling the space with energy that made her heart feel lighter than it had in years. Life did not transform overnight. She still faced challenges, learning more about traditions, finding ways to contribute long-term, and building trust with those who had once doubted her presence. But she approached each challenge with patience, understanding that belonging grew through consistent effort. Her relationship with the father deepened slowly. They shared quiet mornings drinking coffee, long walks through the changing seasons, and honest conversations about hopes and fears. Love grew not from grand declarations, but from everyday moments, shared responsibilities, mutual respect, and the comfort of simply being together. She noticed how her grief changed over time. It did not disappear, but it became softer, less overwhelming. Instead of feeling trapped by loss, she began to carry it as part of her story, something that had shaped her compassion and strength. One evening during a community gathering, elders spoke about the importance of balance in life. Listening to their words, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She realized that her journey had taught her that healing was not about replacing one chapter with another, but allowing new chapters to grow naturally. As the seasons continued to change, she found joy in small moments, helping children learn new skills, sharing laughter with friends, and watching the boy grow stronger and more confident. She and the father built a partnership based on trust, choosing to support each other through both easy and difficult times. Standing together under a sky filled with stars one night, she felt a quiet peace she had once believed impossible. The path she had taken had not been simple or easy, but it had led her to a place where love felt genuine and steady. She understood now that losing her baby had changed her forever, but it had also deepened her capacity to care. Saving the boy had not replaced what she lost. It had helped her rediscover purpose and connection. Her story did not end with a perfect conclusion. Life remained unpredictable, filled with challenges and unknowns. But she no longer feared the future. She faced it with open eyes, supported by people who had become family.